Hello, everybody. It's Donna Cravata, and we're back with another Real 50 Over 50 interview. And today we have Debbie Brosnan. She is the founder of Effortless Kitchen. She's a cooking class instructor, an author, and a retreat leader. And she loves all things food. She found her way from personal chef to virtual cooking class instructor as she and her business adapted with the need for virtual events. And I'm guessing during COVID.
Exactly what
Um,
yeah.
Debbie loves, I'm sorry, she's passionate and self-taught home cook who began her journey cooking alongside her mother and grandmother. And her focus is on healthy food that tastes amazing using simple recipes so that those who take her classes will continue to make dishes and others in their kitchens. Oh, I screwed that up. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Using the recipe she teaches in class, Debbie wrote the Effortless Kitchen Cookbook, simple, healthy, and delicious recipes that make everyday cooking effortless, which is an Amazon bestseller. She hosts private parties, she goes to corporate events, and leads culinary tours in Europe twice a year as an offering for those who have the travel bug. If you want to learn more about that, head over to her website, which is the effortlesskitchen.com. And welcome, Debbie. Let's talk food.
I love talking food. Thank you. I'm so excited to
Me
be here and
too.
be part of this community.
So, obviously, in during COVID, your business changed, and it sounds like you probably turned 50 around the same time. So there was lots of turmoil in that
Yeah,
space.
exactly. I had a COVID 50th and transitioned my business over. I'll say the big pivot, the big I did the big P like everybody else into from personal chef to virtual classes. And I'd never had a business plan for it. It just happened organically because people
Mm,
needed something.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Did you do the sourdough starter?
No, no. A dirty secret about me is that me and dough and I do not get along. So I avoid it at all costs and did not get into the sourdough. I was trying some focaccia for a while and that didn't go over too well. So
So now how did your business change after COVID, since it was just kind of born out of necessity in the middle of a, once in a century pandemic?
yeah, well, it took off really. So COVID was the driving factor behind transitioning to the virtual cooking classes. And what it turned out to be was something different than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be just a way for people to get inspired in the kitchen because we were bored during lockdown. What are you making for dinner? What are you making for dinner? Like that's kind of how it all started. And it really became something where people were connecting, which is what we desperately needed, connecting over food, which I think is, the great connector, having a meal together, even though we were virtual. But what I was really doing instead of just sharing a recipe was inspiring people to learn to cook and be more confident in the kitchen. And it opened my eyes to the number of people out there who really felt like they couldn't do anything right in the kitchen. So
Mhm.
my mission is now to catch all those people, gather them all, and help them all if I can, because cooking is like, I don't know, it's joyful to me. Comes easy to me. It's how I grew up. And I want people to be able to kind of feel the same, or at least feel like they can accomplish something in the kitchen. Whether they feel great joy, that's a different thing. I can't force someone, but you know,
There's something very self-nourishing in being able to feed yourself well,
yeah, right,
not just throw together a sandwich or open a can of soup, but to be
right.
able to put something together that makes you feel good from the inside out.
And it's a form of self care. It
Yeah.
really is, and there's no shame in doing those other things, but if you can really like move from having some cereal at dinner to making something that's has a little bit more whole and fresh ingredients and better for your body, that's going to make you feel better overall.
Mhm. And what kind of changes do you see in people when they start to do this? Because, that whole confidence in the kitchen thing, like, where does that branch out in life, in business, and other areas of life?
So I think it's like anything where if you feel like good about yourself in one way, it branches out to other areas of your life. And what I found was the people who were uncomfortable in the kitchen and all of a sudden taking my classes, saying they still couldn't do it, but in the end having an amazing meal gave them the confidence to continue cooking. And because my dishes are on the healthy side, I call them healthy-ish. I'm not a nutritionist, but I like to kind of use a lot of fresh vegetables and whole grains and make things a little bit leaner, but still taste great. I feel like those choices then broaden into other choices that they're making, whether they're dining out or choosing other recipes, which makes them have more energy and just be able to like accomplish more things.
Mm,
Like I haven't really studied my clients and said, well, how do my classes affect you? But that is kind of like my goal. And that's kind
mhm.
of, I notice how I feel different when I eat better.
Now, do you notice that they start to cook for other people? Do they have parties? Do they invite people over?
What happened in kind of the beginning where there were a few people who said, they came to one class, and that's fine. They went on to do other things, but what they started doing was doing a community of their own. So they would gather with friends on a weekend and pick a recipe and cook
Mm,
together
oh,
and then turn it into like a potluck. And so like just starting with me had turned them into like more of a social gathering and sharing with others, which is what I'm all about.
yeah, that's really nice. And how has your life changed through having a cooking business, an unexpected cooking business?
Unexpected, right? So I loved being a personal chef, but it was isolating and lonely, and I missed being around people. Um, so it created a community for me of people that I can cook with on Saturday mornings for those on the West Coast, but Saturday afternoons on the East Coast. And it like everything that I've done in my business has been kind of based on feedback from clients and what do you need. And so it turned into corporate events, then it turned into a cookbook because one of my clients said every week that he came to class he had a binder of my recipes and he kept showing it to me through the screen. I have your cookbook. Hey Debbie, I have your cookbook. About 5 times later I was like, oh, I have a cookbook. I have a cookbook. So
You accidentally wrote a cookbook in
I
your
mean,
unexpected business.
accidental author. But it's just been like, talk about gaining confidence. Not only were my clients gaining confidence, but then I was also gaining confidence. And then I realized that I have the business that I've always wanted to have since I was 18, but couldn't figure out what that was. I was
Mhm,
always intrigued by being having a food business in some regard, but I didn't want to be a restaurant chef. And what was there at the time when deciding on what to go to college for, I was like, nutrition, that'll be great because then I can help people with how they eat. And
mhm.
that was not my path. I do not like science. And
Yeah,
so I
yeah, that's almost becoming a doctor.
well, I became a CPA instead. So I mean, like that's not really fun, but it paid the bills.
Pay the bills and you can keep your books.
So I finally, found something that I'm really passionate about and continue to talk to people about it, and people are excited about what I'm doing, and it turned into travel around food, which that's my great joy in life is travel and eating. So like to combine it all and then share it with people and then make it part of my business. I mean, I can't think of
Let's
anything better.
let's talk about these culinary adventures because that sounds right up my alley too.
Yeah. I know there's a lot of people like, "I don't like to cook, but I like to eat. I'm gonna
Yeah.
go travel with you." I mean, I grew up traveling with my family, and I really enjoy exploring areas that are not my hometown. It could be in the US or outside, but exploring through food and what they are known for. Italy has been a place that I've always loved to go. I had been a number of times before I started doing the culinary retreats, and I was like, oh, if I can think of any of my classes that are most heavily attended, they are the Italian based pasta classes typically. Like that's what everybody seems to love. I do as well. So let's try an Italian retreat. And they're basically 6 or 7 night, week long food related excursions and tours. And we do a couple of cooking classes that are hands on, that are not taught by me, they're taught by the local experts. And really, when you think about what we're doing there, we're not learning to cook. People are like, oh, but I don't like to cook, so I can't go on your tours, because people think of me as like the
Mm,
cooking instructor. But what the feedback was from very, very beginning was, we're not really there to learn to cook. We're there to learn about the food. And that's what those classes are all about, is learning about the
mhm,
food. And then we get to
mm.
eat. So and we have the wine. And it's like all it's perfect. And it's a small group, and everybody gets to really bond and know each other. And those friendships remain beyond the trip. And I have people who have come back with me more than once. So I must be doing something right. If people are repeating and coming back, you know that you're doing something right. And my next trip, well, I'm leaving for Sicily, but my spring trip for 2025 is something that I, for the first time, launched just to a wait list and not to the public, and didn't even launch to my greater list of clients, because I had such interest and sold out and couldn't even accommodate everybody on the wait list. So that is a super exciting evolution in my business for the trips.
That is amazing,
Yeah,
and doing what you love. I mean, what's better than that?
exactly.
And
Exactly.
getting to go to Italy. And as a CPA, it's a business write-off.
It
It ticks all the
is
boxes.
it is. I'm married to a CPA, so, he's like, "Yeah, we're writing it off. It's a write-off."
So let's talk a little more about cooking in community, whether it's on the trips or, in live classes or virtual classes, or even people, you know, doing, on-demand classes.
Mhm.
Um, how are people connecting through the food, and what do you see, um, that is makes an impact in their lives, that changes them in some way?
Well, when people keep coming back to my classes, they start to get to know each other. We always do introductions, and people are starting to get to know each other. And while we're cooking, there's conversations going on.
Mm,
Even though we're in our little Zoom boxes, there's still,
mm,
even virtually, it can work. That people are really getting to know each other, and what people are doing in their spare time and what they do for work. And it just, the whole thing really has created a community around food and cooking. And then we have people who come and they cook with their spouse, or they
mm,
cook with their child. We have families who come and they'll cook from their own kitchens, but they're not geographically together. And so it's a nice way for people who also know each other to connect around food. And I grew up in an Italian American slash Jewish household, but the Italian side is the side that really celebrated food.
I
Um,
me too, and I the food's just better.
Sunday dinners were, always just the loud family around the table, eating and talking and yelling, and all of it just felt like, food is love, food is joy, and that is what I'm sharing with people, and that's what people are getting out of it.
Yep, food is love. That goes to both sides, the Jewish side and the Italian side. It's just different food.
Absolutely. My Jewish grandmother made a mean matzo ball soup, and
Mhm.
my mother, so it is, something that when I was thinking about what I wanted to do in food, I was thinking maybe I'll do a product, and what product would it be? It would be my matzo ball soup. But then
Mhm.
I was like, a little more complicated than I wanted to get. I'll just make it for my clients.
Yeah, yeah, and you'd get bored of cooking the same thing over
Same
and
thing.
over and over again.
And then mass marketing it, I was like, that's
Mhm.
just not what I want to be doing. I want
No,
to cook for people. I want to share with people, and on
yeah.
a more
I mean,
intimate level.
if you love to cook, you're creative, and you can't cook the same thing over and over again. You've got to try new things and experiment and taste and play.
That's the fun part about what I'm creating is because I keep doing the classes, I keep having to create new recipes. So
Mhm.
every season, I create a new batch of recipes that I share with my clients who take my classes. And then those will eventually go into the next cookbook. The first cookbook was, I launched it in October of 2022. And so at that time, it was all of the recipes that I had taught in class that went into that cookbook. So now I have amassed more recipes. So I think fall 2025 will be the
Book
next
2?
book two. Yeah. It's just like I
Amazing.
love about the cookbook. It's a way for me to be able to share everything that I've been doing with a broader community. People who don't feel like
Mhm.
they want to or can take my classes, and it's all in one place. Um, Dietary substitutions are really important to me. So I try to accommodate as many as I can in each of my recipes. And writing those recipes are hard for a cookbook, easy for virtual classes because I can talk through a recipe. And if the directions don't make sense, it doesn't really matter because I'm doing live instruction. But having to rewrite those recipes for the book was very hard because thinking someone's opening it and they're in their kitchen and I have to assume they know nothing and writing those directions. So sometimes it looks like there's 20 ingredients when really there's maybe 12 because if something appears multiple times, I like to put it in order of how you're
Mhm.
cooking. Because how many times have you cooked like opened a recipe and you're like, okay, 2 tablespoons of oil. And maybe it says divided next to it, but you don't notice that. And as you're cooking, you're like, why did I just dump the 2 tablespoons? But I need a tablespoon later. Oh, shoot. Right. And oil, not a big deal, but there are some other ingredients that, like salt, that's a big
Yeah,
deal.
yeah, or turmeric.
Something that's, you don't wanna over spice, over season, so
Yeah. I don't know, recipes to me are suggestions.
yeah, well, there a lot of people don't feel that way.
Yeah,
I
I know, I
that
know.
that book is like it's like they're hanging on to every word, and, that's also what I, like, try to teach people is, flexibility.
Mhm,
Anytime I do my classes and we talk about it, "Can I do use this? Can I use that?" I'm like, "You can use whatever you wanna use, and if you don't like certain ingredients, don't use
mhm,
them." And
mhm.
taste as you go because your taste is different than mine.
Yeah,
So, my seasoning level is where it's at for me, and that's what my recipes show. If you don't like it, do your own thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I learned how to cook from, my mother and my grandmother too, on the Jewish side. The Italian grandmother wasn't she actually was not a good cook. Um, I know, right? I don't remember her very well, but my brother says he remembers her making bologna sandwiches on white bread with her handprint on them because she would squash them down.
I can picture that, the white bread.
But we never ate white bread, we only ate bakery bread, and my mother would go to the bakery early in the morning on the weekends, and she would eat all the ends on the way back so we didn't fight over them.
Gosh, that's art. That's a good way to, stop the arguments. You can't have it, it's all mine.
But there were no recipes, it was just, like, if you ask, like, "How much of this?" This much."
Uh, no, I try to teach people my grandmother's sauce and her
Mhm,
meatballs, and it's
mhm,
like I was never able to recreate it. I stood by her side when I realized, like, "Oh, I should write this down."
mhm.
There was no measurements, so I was,
Yeah.
like, trying to just watch and, like, figure out what she was doing, and it never tastes the same.
No,
Close, but never the same.
yeah. There's something, um and I still have, like, pots and pans from my grandmother, which
Ooh,
they're probably from, like, the '40s.
yeah.
I have a Pyrex it's very, very old.
They're
Yeah,
workhorses, like,
and
they don't they
looks
don't
brand
die.
new.
Yeah,
No, no, but I always feel like whenever I'm cooking in it, I feel like it's special. There's a
yeah,
little bit of grandma in there.
yeah, right. I know when you think about, like, where all like everything that happened in that pot and in that
Mhm,
pan. We had a lasagna pan from my grandmother. Um, it was not beautiful by any means, and it was gigantic. And
mhm,
my parents were cleaning out some things in their house for whatever reason, decided we didn't need it because we only use it really for Christmas. And we went to make the lasagna that year. It's like, "Well, where's the pan?" "Oh, no, I brought it to Goodwill or wherever they donated it to." Oh my gosh, the upheaval, and so we no longer have that pan. So now it feels like it's not grandma's pan. It's not gonna be the same.
I have a blender that my mom got as a wedding gift in 1953, and it worked up until about 10 years ago.
I'm surprised it actually died because I feel like those appliances lasted
Mhm.
forever. Now our appliances, little small and big appliances, do not
No,
last, and I will
no.
not speak about mine in my house because they I will jinx it, but I feel like, my gosh.
Yeah, I won't get rid of it. It's sitting in the cabinet and it doesn't work, but I mean, that thing my mother used to make chopped liver in there. She would, like, put, like, liver in there and all the things you put in there, and she'd make it in the blender.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So that was one of my if you think about a childhood memory for me, the liver my mother used to make, because she was not a good cook until probably, like, when I was, like, 10, she started really cooking like, decent food, but when I was younger, liver and onions was the worst meal I could think of, and I can still taste it
Yeah.
now, like, just sawing at it because it was so overcooked and just disgusting.
Disgusting, disgusting. I have, like, you know how you have these childhood memories, they're, like, really distinct, like, you could almost still feel like you're there?
Yeah.
We lived in a building, and we lived on the 4th floor, and my brother was a year and a half younger than me, so we must have been about 7, 8 years old, and we walked into the building, and we were on the lobby, and we looked at each other, and we were like, "Oh my god, it's liver," and we turned around, and we went to the pizzeria, but we smelt it from the 4th floor.
What is bad. That is bad. Yeah, that smell was horrible.
But let's talk about the good stuff. So let's talk more about your trips. Like, what happens on these trips?
Um, so some of the trips were in one location and some of the trips we split. So for instance, Sicily, we're going to 2 different locations and those are hotel stays.
Mhm.
Sometimes we do a city stay and then the other half of the trip we're in like a farmhouse, like in Tuscany or a house in a vineyard. I did do a Spain trip because my son was supposed to be studying abroad and he didn't, but we did Barcelona and then we did a vineyard outside. And so we stayed half the stay was in the city so we can walk out and explore the city when we do have free time. And other times it's the guided tours. And then being in a smaller location is really nice because you get that more like we are the only people there. It's like our space. We have large group dinners versus like restaurants. Sometimes we have smaller tables. So I like the mix of the two. It really provides like a more intimate connection time for people when we're in like the smaller places. But then I also like the city because I like being able to just walk about and explore. So I make sure if we're staying in a hotel that we're right in the city center. So we will do food related tours. So we'll explore food markets and do street food touring. If there's cheese that's made locally, wine, olive oil, balsamic vinegar. We did a Parmigiano Reggiano tour in Parma, which was amazing in the north of Italy. Um, we do meals together, but not all. I think it's really important to allow for some free time to explore what the local restaurants and bars have to offer. We do eat a lot on the tours, which I think is great because we get to experience and taste so many different types of food. But sometimes having the free time allows people to go, you know what, I'm just going to go out for dessert, or I'm going to go out for a cocktail, or just wander around the local area. And then we do a couple of cooking classes where we'll learn local specialties. Sicily, we're doing for the first time ever, we're doing a dessert class. We're doing cannoli making
Mm,
because that's where it originated, and I cannot wait to taste the difference. Growing up in Brooklyn, New York, and having access to all of the amazing Italian bakeries, I think I have a pretty good idea of what a cannoli is supposed to taste like. So now I need to go and experience it
different.
for the real
That,
deal.
like, the filling is different
Because they
because the
use
cheese is
sheep's milk
yeah.
ricotta. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'll be interested to
Yeah.
taste that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we do, and we have a local guide, and um, transfers are included, and the community, like getting together with the people on the trip. We do a pre-trip Zoom, which for this next trip we just did on Friday night. Sorry, Monday night. I can't. I don't know what day it is today. Where everybody gets to kind of see each other, know each other a little bit before we get there, because they are strangers. Most people don't know each other.
Mhm.
Um, and by day two, everybody's really pretty well connected, and it just continues, and people find their people. And interestingly enough, on the pre-trip Zoom, two of the women were like, what do you tell me a little bit about yourself? Tell everybody about yourself. And it's like, I am a retired nurse and I'm single. And the other one's like, I'm a retired nurse and I'm single. I'm like, and then someone else is like, oh, so and so who's on your trip is also a retired nurse and single. I'm like, oh, maybe those are my people. Maybe I should be.
Ah, look at that.
Now I had no idea.
A little
Um,
audience development there.
yeah. And they're not women only trips
Mhm.
at all. I do tend to attract more females and more solo female travelers, because it's a safe space where, it's a group and they have people to be with for the week. But couples can go, like my husband goes with me. I brought my mother, I've brought my son who is now 21. And um, groups of 12 to 18.
So now everything's pretty much happened, you know, accidentally or organically as you've been growing your business. Do you
Yes.
have any plans other than the book, or are you just waiting to see, which way it goes next, or a little of both?
I'm waiting to see. I do have an idea of what I want to do. I am starting to do more um, private cooking classes,
Mhm.
because I wanted to capture that big group of beginner cooks, people with the imposter syndrome in the kitchen. I can't do anything right, and help them. And I tried to develop a virtual cooking school for those people. But what I was hearing was, I can't make the date. I'm interested, but I'm not quite the beginner. I don't love the dishes that you have offered for the cooking school. So I've basically turn those clients into private coaching cooking clients, where I can either go to them if they're local, or we can do it virtually, and I can really hone in on what they're looking to do. And a lot of it is building the confidence and
Mhm.
teaching them how to be efficient in their kitchen, how to read a recipe, knife skills, but also tailor the cooking lessons and what we're cooking to their tastes and exactly what they want. The other thing that I'm working on doing is creating it's going to be called the Effortless Kitchen Recipe Box, I think. And
Mhm.
it's going to be an offering of all of the classes that I've taught, because I have them all recorded from our Zoom lessons, and all of the
Mhm.
recipes in one place. So you can work at your own pace and go through all of them or some of them. And there'll be some lessons on there. I have a series of how-to videos on how to cut vegetables and use certain tools, cut vegetables safely. I think that people can do what they're doing in the kitchen and get by, but there's a safe way. I'm not saying it's the right way or there's a wrong way. It's just the safer way to do it. So all of that will be in a library for people. And I'm working on rolling that out. And more trips.
More trips. Do you
Definitely
do do you do any of, like, locally near where you live, do you do any live dinners or anything like that? Get people together?
No, initially I thought I was gonna do, kind of cooking parties, and there is an offering that I am working on for, like, kind of holiday, gather your friends, let's do a dinner party, but I don't want people to think that I'm gonna cater the whole thing, so messaging is really important. The idea is that it's a cooking demo where I help cook the main part of the meal, the main dish. So kind of like what I'm doing in my classes, but bringing it to your home to help with your dinner party, but you fill in with
Mhm.
everything else and gather with
Mhm.
your friends and you get to eat, and I just leave. So you have a little bit of education, but also there's the food there too, and make it a little bit more festive with drinks and whatever else they want to serve. So that kind of like that model is what I'm looking to, maybe catch a couple of clients for that for this holiday season and see how that goes. I'm always willing to like try new things. So
Mhm.
who knows?
Yeah, I was thinking, like, around where I live, there are all of these beautiful farms where they've set up, like, farm-to-table restaurants in there,
Mhm.
and, I just think it would be, like, a nice way to leverage using those spaces that they already have, and they already have, like, a chef and a kitchen and just gathering the people to
Yeah.
support the farms and, have something nice. I'm just thinking where I live, I don't know if they even have anything like that by you, but I just have ideas and I can't help but share
I
them.
know. There's a local farm here, and I've done a couple of cooking classes there,
Mhm,
which were great. So,
mhm,
um, yeah, I'm all about using like locally grown, locally sourced ingredients if I can.
yeah.
So it's nice to educate people and show people how that can be really easy.
Yeah, yeah, and affordable. I mean, I think people just discount it because they think it's expensive. And, I like where I live, there are farmers markets all over the place, and some of them are ridiculously expensive because of where they are, but if you go, 3 miles in the other direction, there's another one that isn't ridiculously expensive.
Right. Right. Yeah. Um, I don't know. Farmers markets are great. Quality is great.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to be careful if you're buying something. You want to make sure you're actually using it. It gets
Mhm.
really expensive when you don't use it and it dies
Yeah.
in the refrigerator and then you just throw it away. Like that's the problem is, buying what you need, knowing how to use it, and knowing what you're going to use it for, and having a plan. Like that's kind
Mhm.
of one of the biggest things I teach is planning
Yeah.
and then thinking about things in advance.
Yeah, that's really good. So we're at our half an hour, but the way that I like to end these little interviews is by asking for a wisdom bomb. Like, what do you want people to know about food, about nourishing themselves, about having confidence in their kitchen?
So I'm not going to steal the slogan, but just do it. Like that is kind of how I feel about
Mhm,
working with people who are afraid and feel like they're a failure in the kitchen is just try it, just do it, just make it easy on yourself and grab a recipe from a friend who you trust, who uses it for their weeknight meals because those tend to be the easier ones and just be calm and confident in the kitchen and you can pretty much work through any recipe just it's like being methodical and calm and but saying that you can't and not doing it is not doing yourself any favors.
mhm.
Or get some help. Come find me or somebody else or watch cooking shows or there's so much out there. I'm not the only person. There's YouTube. You can find anything. So just try something. Just do it.
Do you have recipes on your website?
I do not. No, they're in my cookbook and I teach them. So
All
yeah,
right. Well, head on over to her website and buy a book, join a
absolutely.
class, go
Join a
to
class.
Italy.
Yeah, with me.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. Another half Italian, half Jew from Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Woohoo.
Oh, yeah, right in the same neighborhood too.
I know, that's rare, that's rare. So, have a great Wednesday, everybody. We will be back next week with more, Real 50 Over 50 interviews every Wednesday at noon Eastern Time, and please connect with Debbie at theeffortlesskitchen.com and see what she's up to with helping people how to cook.
Thank you.